look at my brand book.
Oh, fun.
I don't know.
You have your brand book?
You're not gonna make sure.
Taylor, are you challenged?
No.
When it's disruptive and then
Should I look at my brand book?
All right, you guys, we're gonna get started. Thank you guys so much for being here. Make sure that, a couple housekeeping things, make sure to sign in at the back of the classroom. And if you're joining us virtually, make sure to use the chat feature to let us know you're here. I'm really excited about today's class. I'm excited about every class, but Ryan will be delivering a class about language today, obviously, and how you can use it to be more conversational so you don't sound so robotic, and just really be more natural in yourself when talking about Dawson, because we are the experts. Make sure to follow along using your brand book, if you do have it. If not, that's okay. So I will turn over to Ryan, who is our Senior Creative and Marketing Communications Strategist. Wait, Senior Creative and Communications Strategist. Sorry, that's a mouthful. And he's the ultimate expert, so welcome, Ryan.
Okay, first rule, phones off, friends on. It's a new thing that I say. We are going to talk about language matters today, how to talk about Dawson in a way that works for you. So to kick off the class, a special Throwback Thursday shout out to our girl, Jonna Beckel, the Chief Human Resources Officer at Ohio Health. You guys remember when she came to the Dawson annual meeting and talked about customer experience as a whole, and here is what she had to say about why language matters.
So there's 3,482 people that you all have screened out for your customers in 2018. Those are rejected or disengaged candidates in 2018. What I would say is common language matters. So as you think about Ohio Health, you think about Disney, you think about Yum Brands, language matters. It sends a message, it encapsulates who you are and what you believe. And so I would say these 1,224 people that you have screened out for us are not rejected candidates or disengaged candidates. They are future customers or patients of ours. So they're either seeing us now or will see us in the future.
So you see there, she basically said the same thing in two very different ways and delivered a completely different message. So our learning objectives for today are to understand tone of voice and the Dawson brand personality and how that applies to you in your daily job. Understand the importance of being conversational and finding the way that best works for you when talking about Dawson. I know, and shout out to all of you, because I think everyone's done a really great job of taking the brand book and trying to use it. And I think it has probably become overwhelming for sure, and maybe even a little bit debilitating, for lack of a better word, to some of you guys, because you're trying to use it so literally. We're going to make sure that this is just the tool that you guys are using to help guide your conversations. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. And we will dig into the use versus lose section of the Dawson brand book, which a couple of you said in the pre-work that this is obviously very recruiter focused, so we'll talk about that too, because we definitely want to expand on this for future brand books. Are there payroll things that you have a hard time communicating, or sales messaging that we can also help with? So we'll talk about all of that. So first of all, tone of voice. It's important because it defines our brand personality. So to explain tone of voice a little bit better, I have enlisted the help of a couple of my friends, Leslie Nope and Gretchen from Mean Girls. So first, watch this clip from Parks and Recreation and observe.
If you look inside your bags, you will find a few things. A bouquet of hand-crocheted flower pens, a mosaic portrait of each of you made from the crushed bottles of your favorite diet soda, and a personalized 5,000-word essay of why you're all so awesome. What's Galentine's Day? Oh, it's only the best day of the year. Every February 13th, my lady friends and I leave our husbands and our boyfriends at home, and we just come and kick it breakfast style. Ladies celebrating ladies. It's like Lilith Fair, minus the angst. Plus frittatas. So
Alright, so if you had to describe Leslie Knope's personality or her tone of voice, how would you describe it? You don't have to raise your hand, you can just yell.
Upbeat.
Okay, good.
Excited.
Great,
Happy.
excellent.
Friendly.
Anyone else?
Enthusiastic.
Did a good job of predicting. So Leslie's brand voice, because in marketing we say that brains are people, people are brands. Friendly and happy, energetic, warm, and caring. Now on the other end of the spectrum, let's take a look at Gretchen from New Girls.
You can't wear a tank top 2 days in a row, and you can only wear your hair in a ponytail once a week. So I guess you pick today. Oh, and we only wear jeans or track pants on Fridays. If you break any of these rules, you can't sit with us at lunch. Well, I mean, not just you, like any of us. Okay, like if I was wearing jeans today, I would be sitting over there with the art freaks. Oh, we always vote before we ask someone to eat lunch with us because you have to be considerate of the rest of the group. Well, I mean, you wouldn't buy a skirt without asking your friends first if it looks good on you. I wouldn't. Right.
What is Gretchen's brand voice?
Condescending.
Exclusive, not inclusive.
Like it, I like it. Bitchy. Mean, rude, condescending, snotty, all of the above. So obviously we want to be more like Leslie Knope and less like Gretchen from New Girls. Language matters, another quote from Mark Cuban. Any Shark Tank fans in the room? So he said in a Forbes interview last October, one of the most underrated skills in business right now is being nice. Nice sells. So that leads us right into the Dawson brand voice, which we have defined in the brand book. And again, this is probably the first time that many of you have seen anything like this. So we'll dig into this a little bit better. So our brand voice is friendly and conversational, which is obviously the opposite of pushy and condescending. We're knowledgeable and helpful, not disinterested and uninformed. Upfront and transparent, not misleading and dishonest. And make sure to be relevant and understandable, not filled with unrelatable industry terminology. So I'm going to work backwards a little bit here. I'm going to start with, oh, no we're not. That'll come in a minute, just a second. So here's some examples that we're talking about. We are friendly and conversational. We would say, I think this is a really great opportunity for you. I'd like to hear more about why you think it isn't and what you're looking for specifically, rather than, this is the best job you're going to find. Good luck finding anything better. Obviously, these are extreme examples, but disinterested and uninformed would be, I don't really care what you're paying, we'll find you some warm bodies, which we should obviously never be telling a client. What would be better is, what we're seeing in the market right now is higher pay rates for these kind of jobs. I think you'd have better success and attract better people at a higher rate. Our brand voice is not misleading and dishonest. Never say, we help every job seeker who walks in our door get a great paying job within a week. I'll have you working tomorrow for sure. Why? Because that's a lie. Instead, we could say something like, unfortunately, after reviewing your resume and listening to your experience, I want to be honest, we don't always have opportunities for people like you. I'm happy to give you some tips on your resume or interviewing, but I want your expectations to be realistic. That sentence right there can be a really great brand experience for someone who we never place. And that's just as important as the people that we do place. So, finally, the Dawson brand voice is relevant and understandable, not filled with unrelatable industry terminology. Which is one of my favorites. We are a client-based staffing agency, which we're going to talk about more, who markets candidates over to companies. What the hell does that mean? Anyone? Anyone? So instead say something like, companies come to Dawson to find great people for jobs that they have open right now, but don't have the resources to fill on their own. One of the things that we want to make sure that we're talking about when we're talking about brand voice is every interaction you have with every person is going to be different. There's not a script that, say this to every single person. Bernadette might be meeting with a candidate who was placed by a job seeker, who was replaced by a recruiter 10 years ago. So she's kind of been through the process. She understands how it works. You're also going to deal with an applicant who's never been to a staffing agency before, maybe a recent grad who's never looked for a full-time job before. The way you talk to those two people are obviously very different. So specifically want to talk about that last bullet point where we are relatable and conversational and not filled with industry jargon. Becky had a really good example yesterday. We're the employment experts, so we talk about this stuff all the time. Just like doctors would talk about cancer different to each other than they talk to the patient, we need to have that mentality when we are dealing with our job seekers and our associates. So I'm gonna throw some terminology up on the screen. This is gonna be a silent activity. I know your least favorite, but show of hands. If I say the word 86, how many of you know what that means? Okay, handful of you. API. Another handful of you, different handful. CRO. By the way, I can't even raise my hand on some of these because I have no clue what they are. ATS. Okay. DPI. No. Graphic design nerds only. And geofencing. Okay. So these are all industry-related terminologies that are in other industries. 86 at a restaurant means that you're out of something. I literally one time went to a really nice restaurant in Chicago, and the waitress came up and said, "I'd like to tell you about some of the items that were 86 tonight." And I was like, "What in the hell are you talking about? And also, why would you tell me that you don't have that on your menu?" Because I'm going to say that's what I wanted. API is a technology, applicant processing, application processing interface or something. Anyway, the point being, all of these words, if someone came in a job interview, you're going to look at them and say, what is an API? Like, I don't know what that means. I need you to help me explain that, to an employer or whatever. So kind of thinking about the lowest common denominator and the type of language that you're using. So some of those words in our industry, candidate, again, this is something that we focused on a lot. We found, specifically with job applicants when we did our focus groups, that you say the word candidate, they go A, right to politics, and then B, as they talk about it and figure out what the word candidate means in our world, they hate it because it makes them feel dirty, like a commodity, and sort of, also like it's this big competition. They don't really feel like we're their advocate when we're using that word. Market you over, again, we know what that means. Like, we are marketing these people over to clients all the time, but there's definitely a better way to say that. I've heard Bernadette say this, and it's great. She's like, I put together this really cool package with your resume and a little short bio of you and your talent roster video, and we send that over and get the chance to talk about you to our client, things like that. Client-based staffing agency, my all-time favorite. I get that question a lot, and we got the question in the pre-work a lot. Like, I work here, and I don't even understand what client-based staffing agency means. So I do know what you are saying when you say client-based staffing agency, but a better way to say that is, a client comes to us looking for the best people. They know that we've got this vast network of people ready to work today. Ultimately, they get to make the hiring decision because they are the hiring manager. You can say anything like that rather than we're a client-based staffing agency because they don't know what that means. And then, on the back end of that, if one company that we present you to doesn't, if it doesn't work out there, we can then present you to our other network of things. But I really like Bernadette's way of saying that, like, kind of again, explaining the process to them. We do this every day, so we know how this works. They know. Send out, cute name for a newsletter. No job seeker has any idea what that means. Job board, this is another interesting one that we did in focus groups. They don't call them that. They know what Monster is, they know what Career Builder is, they, I think at that point even our website was labeled job board, and that's such an industry term. So even if you're listening to commercials for like ZipRecruiter or Career Builder or something like that, they just call it a job website, but being very mindful of what the job seeker, thinks of that. Did you apply to a job board? How did you find us? They have no idea what you just asked. And they're also, in a very stressful time anyway, so sometimes when we're using language like that, they kind of have a wall up, and so they don't want to ask you those questions back for fear of sounding stupid or not intelligent and all of that stuff, so always thinking about that. Contingent, another word that we'll get into a little bit more here when we get to the use this, not that. So let's talk about the importance of conversational language. I think this is kind of the theme that we want you guys to take away from here. Today, again, this goes back to meeting them where they are. The way you talk to a hiring manager is going to be different than you talk to one of your colleagues, is going to be different than you talk to the CFO of a company. So conversational language engages and relaxes your contact. Anyone you're talking to, if you're not using that industry jargon, if you're talking to them like a person, they're already disarmed a little bit and feel like you're on their side and you're someone that they want to work with. It makes you more likable and relatable and adds a personal touch to the process. Obviously, searching for a job is a lot of work. It's a pain point for most people that come through our doors. And so they're already stressed out. And they also think that when they're applying to jobs on job websites, and even through websites of companies that are hiring, they think that they are inside of this automated process and they don't have anyone to help them. So our job is to do that. So the number one rule for conversational language, know the audience. So in your brand book, if you want to follow along, you can. If not, we have them all here on the screen. So just want to dig in a little bit more to the language to use versus language to lose. And again, what we want to do for those of you who aren't recruiters is look at this and think about your day-to-day life and things that you have a hard time saying, or things that you hear other people say that either don't make sense to you or you think are really good or difficult. Keep a list of those, and this is a starting point. We want to keep building this for all of our divisions and for all of our positions. So, language to use when you're a recruiter, use language that's about getting noticed, because job seekers think that applying to jobs means sending their resume or application into a black box. We have access to positions that may not have otherwise been available. Again, they might have a question about that. What do you mean that you're hiring for this position for L Brands? I went to their website and didn't see this position listed. You can explain to them, sometimes we get positions that are unlisted because they don't have the resources to search for them on their own, or this is a temporary position and they only hire for full-time. Whatever the reason may be. Again, we know all of the answers, we just have to communicate that information. We get your resume in front of the right people. Again, I think it's a black box, and they just know once they get into the hiring managers, once they get there for the interview, that they've got it from there, but they feel like they've sent all these applications, not even getting an automated response back. It's just this, vicious cycle that they're in, and so they're like, finally, my resume will be read. We can't guarantee that you'll get a position, but we can ensure that you'll get noticed by the right people. Again, I think this one is all about setting realistic expectations and not being dishonest. We don't help everyone that goes through, comes through the door. I know when I was being creative 100 years ago, one of the lines that I would use a lot, use us as a resource, and we can help you, but don't use us as your only resource. Make sure that they're not putting all of their eggs in this basket, because we may be able to help them and we may not. And again, just if they have a good experience, they're likely to refer someone to us down the road. Use language that's about ease, because job seekers think that this whole thing is a drain of time and energy. So we use our relationships with companies from a variety of industries to match job seekers to positions they're qualified for. Now again, some of these sentences and how they're written up here, very formal. Find a way to make it your own. You kind of get the gist, and you'll make it your own way. And you don't have to spend as much time searching for jobs and sending them resumes. Again, that's all value benefits for our job seekers. They know that the jobs are out there, but they think they're wasting a lot of time by applying to one for going out to anything. So, use language that's personal, because they think the application process is automated and impersonal. We work one-on-one with job seekers. It's like you've got a friend in the job business. We'll return phone calls and follow up on emails. Dig into this one a little bit too. I think this was about expectations. How do they want to be communicated with? And also let them know how you want to be communicated with. One of the things that came up in pre-work a lot was sort of, email is the best way to get a hold of me, period. I think that happens on the floor a lot. And I think, again, thinking that conversational, disarming, I'm interviewing people like you all day, every day, trying to help all of you, at once. And so I'm just not at my desk a lot. So if you drop me an email, I can respond between interviews, or set that expectation up front, and don't just make it, this is how I want to be communicated with. Tell them what's in it for them too, right? Like if you email me, you're much more likely to get a quick response, and here's why. We make support services available. This is a great opportunity to talk about our community workforce programs that we're doing with high schools and colleges and things. On our website, you guys probably don't even know this, but that's not anyone's fault. Like there are job seeker tips on there. We just loaded a bunch of new ones with the graduation campaign that we're running. The graduation brochures that are all sitting at the front desk, they are tips for a new grad to find a great job. But there's LinkedIn tips and resume tips, and here are the top 10 interview questions that are great for any job seeker. So use those. We've got tons of them. Again, we're positioning ourselves as the experts in that's another tool in your toolbox to show that. Don't use language that oversells your value. Again, this is the realistic expectation thing. We can send your resume to 100 people, and the time you can send it to one, they hear, yeah, you're doing that with everyone else too. By the way, I don't think I said this up front, but this language to use versus language to lose section came from the American Staffing Association. About 18 months ago, they hired an agency out of New York, a research agency that put all of this kind of language part together. So this is real scientific, actually done by a research company that does this in the agency. So this is real stuff, and it's really good. So don't oversell benefits like healthcare, workers' comp, etc. Their pain point is they need to be working right now for the most part, and they don't really perceive those as benefits because their benefit is that they're going to get a paycheck. So don't use language that indicates flexibility. Don't say flexible work because it sounds flexible for the employer. Choose when, where, and how you work isn't realistic. And consultant or freelancer, again, this is sort of meeting everyone in their world. Creative might use that word, right? Because they do want to freelance and they, have been a consultant on a project before. But as especially for like the office and call center division, things like that, they don't even know what that means. Don't use language that's future focused. Bridge language. If you say, take this job, it'll make you more hireable or more employable for your next job. Again, they want a job right now, and it's a little bit belittling. It makes them feel like they're not good enough today. Opportunity to gain experience, kind of the same thing. A bridge to permanent employment or a stepping stone to the job you really want. It's kind of an empty promise, and there is no guarantee there. Chance to get on the career ladder. They're probably already on the career ladder. They're just out of a job for whatever reason. They're coming to us for help. We're kind of like their last resort. So, and then don't use language that emphasizes the company benefit. Seasonal work makes you sound disposable. In the pre-work, someone in LI specifically said, it says don't say seasonal work, but that's kind of what we do. Again, this is kind of like the creative thing. People that are coming to LI are probably used to doing seasonal jobs. They've been doing them for 10, 15 years or whatever. So that's one of those words, obviously, when you're meeting with that audience, it works. So companies can try before they buy or will help you smooth the ups and downs through the transition period. It kind of makes them feel like a commodity and doesn't make them feel valued. And then contingent, again, we talk about contingent labor. It's a very industry term. We know what that means, but they think that it means they're paid contingent on your performance. So, with all of that, time for a little group activity, or it could be a solo activity, really, whatever you want. On this worksheet, there are 5 questions, or examples, of language that we shouldn't use. So your job is to come up with alternatives of a better way to say these things. You have 3.5 minutes on this phone to say something nice. All right, so I will take volunteers from the audience to give answers on the questions. So, using the examples below, suggest an alternate way to deliver each of these messages. Number one, the client said they didn't like you. We're a client-based staffing agency, so I don't know what to do. Anyone?
We put, unfortunately, the company went with someone who has more relatable experience, but we will keep looking.
I like it. Anyone have anything to add?
I said your skills and experience are not aligned with this particular client or job, and we can work towards finding something that suits your skills better.
Number two, well, clearly you're a pothead. We can't work with you. Lame crowd today.
You did not meet the minimum hiring requirements at this time, but you're encouraged to reapply in 6 months.
That's what we said.
Anyone else? That was always a fun situation with creative candidates.
We give them plenty of heads up time
Yeah,
now.
yeah. Number three, we don't actually have healthcare recruiters, so we can't help you. Trick question to see if you were paying attention in the last class. Bill?
We do have healthcare.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask, because I felt like there was a way we could refer them over to them, exactly, no?
Yeah, I think there is, and I think that, from a procedure and process standpoint, I think we still have some ironing out to do. But I wanted to put this question on here specifically because this is sort of, for me, this is a great example of, I don't actually have the answer, but I'm going to find out. And I think, again, in your own way and in a way that is talking, I think this happens at job fairs a lot, right? Like you're there and a nurse comes up and says, oh, you have this. The reality is we don't have healthcare recruiters on staff. However, we have a whole division that works with a ton of healthcare recruiting agencies and all of the big hospital systems in Columbus. So I want to take your information and I'm going to pass it along to someone in that division, and they'll reach out and let you know what will happen. I think at some point we need to have a specific contact person that we come back from job fairs and say, hey, Shanice, here's all the people, you figure out what to do with them. But I think that's really the message, because we can't, you, Stephanie, cannot directly connect them to a healthcare position, but you know the people that can and would love to help you.
We did a lot of calls about that, so.
Yeah. And like in that case, I would even like route that to Shanice. I don't know if that's like what you guys are doing, but
What did you say?
like route those calls to Shanice.
Okay.
Can I add to this? I mean, this is like an unofficial ad, but like I would make sure you're asking the right question too, because some people might be asking if they can work in healthcare, but they're talking about the industry and not the job. So like, ask that question first before you're like, no, we don't do that. They might say, well, I'm an administrative assistant and I love working in the medical field. You know what I mean? So we've just dismissed them without asking the right question. Because I know that used to come up when I was in recruiting too. They're like, no, I'm not like a nurse, but I want to work at, whatever hospital or whatever. So.
Number four, situation. A client calls with an order for 15 call center reps. They want to pay $10 an hour. What would you say to educate them and set realistic expectations?
I do this all the time. It's part of education. I have on my desktop the latest unemployment map from Franklin County, for Ohio, and so I'll get their email address and I'll send it to them. But most of the people I sent it to had no idea that Franklin County was at 3.5% unemployment rate. So the pool, so I'm saying to them, the pool of quality, and I use the word quotes, quality job seekers who are unemployed or looking for work is very shallow, and the competition is pretty high. So at $10 an hour, you're going to be hard pressed to find good quality people. But look at this map that I'm going to send you and see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think that's the right answer. What we're not going for here is, and I think there was an example earlier in the deck, like, sure, we'll be right on top of that. We want to, consult with them, help them along. Just like we would tell a job seeker, if you do this to your resume, you are going to have a better chance of getting noticed by an employer. With the employers too. Hey, if you do this, if you up the pay by $1 or you up the pay by 50 cents, you know, whatever that message is, we're going to be more successful in this together.
If they refuse, I tell them to call Solutions. Every time.
No, but I think that's good, because then you're like, hey, we're still a resource and we're still educating, we believe so much in what we're doing, that like, I'll tell you somewhere else that might be able to help you, but thanks, but no thanks.
We'll talk to you again in 3 months.
Yeah, you're gonna call back.
And final situation, a job seeker walks into the front desk without a resume or their 2 forms of ID. You would know, they've been through 100 times that that's what they're supposed to bring. What message would you give them?
Well,
This was another tiny trick question.
I normally say no problem at all. You have a computer you can use to print off your resume, and as long as you have a photo ID, we can get you in with a recruiter today.
That's the right answer. Again, I think it's, you know, if they come and we turn them away for any reason, whether it's because it's 4:45 or, you know, we say we don't take walk-ins or, you know, whatever the reason is, which by the way, we always take walk-ins, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. You know, what can you do to help them at least get in our system, get in our pipeline? Hey, I'm sorry, you didn't bring 2 forms of ID. We'd love to have you meet with a recruiter. There is some paperwork that you may have to come back and finish if we're able to place you. Just again, it's all about setting that realistic expectation and being nice about it. Not, oh, you didn't. I think the tendency is, again, because we deal with this stuff all the time and all day, every day. Just because you had 4 people show up without their resume today doesn't have anything to do with that 5th person that didn't show up with their resume. This is their first experience doing that, you know. So, you know, and I think that's another good opportunity to educate. Like, hey, this is not a big deal. You didn't bring a resume here. Anytime you go on an interview from here on out, you need to bring 2 copies of your resume with you, or the next person might not be as nice as I just was. They'll take that with them for the rest of their life. So.
I think something about the resume thing too that like remember is like being in their shoes, like as a job seeker, like they may not have sent it in because they have not been educated on how to like present a resume effectively. So like how can we take that opportunity to like coach them again and educate them, and they also may not have like the resources to submit it if they're looking for a job.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, you know, for me, I came in here 8 years ago. I'd never been into an agency before. I had no idea what to expect, you know, I didn't know how it worked, and I think we take for granted again every day that this is what we do. So, you know, they know. I mean, it's like you wouldn't go to a restaurant and have a server say, so I bring in your appetizers before I come back and get your, you know, before I come back and get your entrees so that everything is timed perfectly. That's for sure how it works, but they don't need to know that. But if they ask those questions, or, you know, I think we have to be honest in the front and let them know this is how it works. Again, that's the realistic expectation of being transparent and setting everyone up for success. So, any questions, comments, anything else on the content we covered? Super. Now let's talk about our key takeaways. Remember, I really want to drive this home because you know, there's probably some stuff in the brand book that if you use verbatim and read word for word, you're like, this is so unnatural and uncomfortable. So use the brand book as a tool. It's the information that's included that is important, not necessarily the exact message and the way you deliver it. Find a way that works for you. Key takeaway number 2, know your audience and cater your language and the message toward the person that you're talking to. Just like we said earlier, you know, Travis talking to a hiring manager be much different than him talking to an on-site who is, you know, working with a client. Talking to a job seeker that's been here before and been through the system versus someone who's just coming in on their first day. Everybody's kind of at a different step in their journey. Love the J word. And finally, final key takeaway, when communicating, be more Leslie and less Gretchen. All right. 6 minutes over. Shoot. All right, thanks everybody.